Like most businesses in America, the real estate industry has become a battle between large global corporations, multinational corporations with Wall Street backing, and small local enterprises. And the corporate press always pushes the advantages of the big company as if the default is bigger is good, international is good. Is it? And it has been serving the American people recently. Well, I think the recent implosion at Redfin is a great insight to learn what's really going on in these big companies and why they don't really serve people on the best. Now, before we get into that, also, I'll add a little teaser. How's the city of Los Angeles doing? You know, we had 13,000 houses burned down. I don't know if you heard. We couldn't put water into the fire hydrants. How are we doing on rebuilding efforts? 75 days into it. I'm going to give you a spoiler alert, not very well. But before we get into that, let's take a look at where the real estate market is, and then we can update ourselves. And we look at an economy, we always look at buyers and sellers, the two parts, demand and supply of a market. And on the buyer side, the demand is really pushed by interest rates. So let's check the latest interest rates this past week. Closed, the number I watch most closely is the Freddie Mac number, closed down at 6.65. Basically, it'd been the same range, under 7%, about 6.75, continuously now for about a month or so. About the middle of where it's been for the last year. And at these levels, easily, we have good enough rates to encourage buyers who want to buy or qualify to buy a house. The problem is not the rates are too high. Now, obviously, rates going down would be a good thing for adding more buyer interest, but that would raise prices. I don't know if it would necessarily stimulate more housing being built right now, because the problem is on the inventory side, as we switch over to the seller or demand side. Here's inventory, and you can see that the numbers still have not, refreshing there, have not really turned back up since the beginning of the year. Now, traditionally, January, February are the low months, and then things pick up. But again, as I've said every week, these numbers are historic lows when compared to the non-COVID period. Only during COVID were inventory levels lower, and every other time period, we had more houses available for sale, which makes sense, you would think, because our population increases. The amount of houses we have total should increase. The number of houses available for sale should increase proportionally with the population, all things being equal. So the fact we have so few homes for sale show that our economy is, in essence, broken. And as we try to work our way out of that situation, one city, one county, one state at a time, we have to improve that. But as of now, there's not enough houses for there to be a market crash. And we'll talk a little bit about that information a little bit later. Now, how is the Los Angeles market in particular? Because real estate is very local. Well, concerning change. In the beginning of the year, this is Altus Market Research, and their number went from a 37 to a 38 and peaked out about 38.74 a few weeks ago, and has turned back. And what I think is happening is the houses that have come off the market, probably more people than expected are going to be not rebuilding or looking to move out. They realize how long it's going to take. And so the market in Los Angeles is, instead of continuing to tighten, as you might have expected as a seller's market, is moving towards equilibrium. Now, I'm not saying the market's crashing here. I'm just saying the market is not as tight as it otherwise might be. And in the last couple of weeks, it's moved significantly in that direction towards an equal market. A 30 is an equal market. We're at 37. We're almost at a 40 a few weeks ago. That tells you where we're headed. And we keep an eye on that. I watch the statistics every week, so we'll keep an eye on that and see what that becomes. Okay, let's get to the heart of the matter this week, which is about globalism and how it affects real estate. And one of the pieces of news I talked about for the last few weeks is Redfin. And you might say I've been dancing on the grave for a while. And as an American taxpayer, I am. This is a company that's worth billions of dollars. The top executives make millions of dollars. The investors make all kinds of money. A lot of people lose when people bought the stock after it was issued. And, of course, American taxpayers lose. And so we look into this. This is a letter written by the CEO of Redfin. Rocket is buying Redfin. This is written by the CEO, Glenn Kelman, the guy who founded the company about, I think, 14 years ago. Redfin was founded. And it really gets some insights into the world of, I think, large corporations and how they bend the truth, I guess is one way to look at that. So typically, when you have these transitions of companies being purchased, the management has certain metrics they have to follow, like how many of their employees they keep, how many sales they keep, how many, in this case, conversions, how many customers they force into their subpar lending company where they get a kickback on that. So they're watching that very carefully. And one of the differences for me as a real estate agent is I'm obligated to give my customer the best service. I can't just give them one that gives me the highest kickback. I'm obligated, I'm a fiduciary, I'm obligated to give my customer the best service. So it's interesting when you read the article, what it says, and I want to kind of point your eyes to a couple points. One is, this whole thing is like 1, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 12 paragraphs. And right in the middle, one of the biggest ones is, keep sending loans to Bay Equity loan officers. You might say, well, why is that? Because Redfin had bought Bay Equity and their loan officers. And the idea was that Redfin would promote Bay Equity as a great lender, and Bay Equity would promote Redfin as a great real estate company, and together they would exchange money going back and forth somehow at a corporate level. And I'm sure there were incentives to the individuals. But when you read this, if you read it, it says, for now, our agents should keep sending loans to Bay Equity loan officers. No reason why. It just says you should. Once the deal closes, we'll work together the best way for these loan officers to join Rocket via Rocket logo. Now, when a president of a company being acquired says, oh, don't worry, we're finding a way to fit you in as a job. We don't know how yet, but we will. That's corporate speak for, you're getting laid off the day we close. We're not going to tell you that because we don't want you to disrupt our business. Personally, Glenn is making money for every loan done, basically by equity, so he doesn't want the loan officers to leave until after the deal closes. The day the deal closes, they can all scatter to the breeze for all he cares. And it's just interesting how nowhere in here does he say we should continue to do that because Bay Equity is the best lender in the business, and they're going to help Rocket Mortgage be a better lender. Rocket Mortgage maybe has great technology and a big national platform. You might even say, hey, they need us as much as we need them. Blended together, we're better. No, this is just purely pay us because we get kickbacks for now. And as soon as we're done with kickbacks, we'll try to find a way for you to get paid. I'm not sure how. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to worry too much about it. And so there you go. Now, one of my favorite parts of these letters is always what are called forward-looking statements. Now, you'll notice the font is the same. That's required by law. You'll notice that about half of this whole letter is forward-looking statements with no, hardly any paragraph breaks other than those required by law. And the thing I love about these is always forward-looking statements based on current beliefs, like blah, 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 and are subject to significant risks and uncertainties that could cause actual results to differ materially from the results expressed in such statements, meaning, well, we don't really know if it's accurate or not. We're just telling you whatever BS we think you'll buy today. And then it goes on even to say at the end, where was this one? The information set forth and any intentional obligation to update for the statement says, as a result of developments occurring after the date is hereby disclaimed, meaning they put this out one day, the next day they could completely change all the strategy, the reasons, all the data, and it's irrelevant. They've already here in this letter told you, yeah, once we gave this letter out to you, if you're dumb enough to rely on it, we could change and say whatever we want because things change going forward. And so what you have here is, I think, an example of the governance of these big corporations. This is the most transparent we're going to get with them. Large corporations in real estate, apparently corporations, Keller Williams and Coldwell Banker, Century 21, eXp Realty, and the like, they're big companies, but typically these are individual salespeople like me running their own business as an independent contractor. Almost all realtors in the country, I would say over 95%, are their own business. The exceptions were Redfin. They're the largest exception, and a couple others. And the difference is we pay taxes as federal taxes to the extent we have profits. The difference is we have low corporations. The difference is we're in your community. These companies issue statements and then disappear and get merged and go away. And I just feel like we need to, as consumers, recognize that these companies don't have stakes in our community, and as such, should be looked at with caution. The default shouldn't be because they're a big company, because they're on the internet, somehow they're superior. It should be the opposite. Because they have no stake in our community, they're not paying taxes in our community, and more importantly, they run themselves like a global corporation, not like a local business. They should be looked at with suspicion and concern. And I think the Redfin, as they're being broken up for pieces and sold, we get a chance to look behind the curtain a little bit and see what's gone on for over the years. This is a company that basically never made a profit, basically never paid any federal taxes, disrupted other companies with glee, paid news organizations to promote them along the way, and along the way created a big mess. Now, what's that mess look like on a local level? Well, one of my favorite source of information is a real estate professor out of Colorado, Mike Delpret. And he shows that what's interesting is that the number of part-time agents is continuing to grow. He shows that, let me pull up the right number here. 37% of agents do 6 or more transactions. I might call them full-time. I'm one of those. 40% do 1 or 2 a year. And what he noted in his analysis is even though transactions have gone down nationwide from 4.6 million to 3.4 million, so the industry has gone down 1.2 million or about 25% overall, and the transactions per agent have gone down about 20%. The number of agents has only gone down about 7%. And so what from 900,000 to about 840. And what that shows is the resilience of agents to find different ways. Some agents are at other lines of work. Some do loans, some do accounting, some do other business, financial planning. But it tells you that despite the depression in the industry of sales, down 25%, despite this globalist competition with unfair advantages like not paying federal taxes, your local realtor is still hung in there. And the reason is that one by one, a customer chooses an individual agent on each transaction for a reason. They think they get more value from that agent than they do from Redfin online might provide. It's no different than people choosing people to do taxes rather than, say, choosing QuickBooks' accounting department online, which is another choice. At the end of the day, I think this is to be celebrated and encouraged. You know, I'm a full-time agent, but I notice nowadays that on the buyer's side, when people make offers on my properties that I'm listing or show them, most of them, I want to say at least half of them are part-time now. That didn't used to be the case. Now, one reason why is customers typically want to see property after hours and on weekends. And I, as a listing agent, I work a full day Monday through Friday. I'm not available to show property at night. I have one of my colleagues do it for them. I don't show property on weekends. I have a colleague do it for them. And those colleagues are oftentimes part-time. And so what happens is we have an industry that's bifurcating, but it's giving the value to the customer that the customer wants. And so again, I think rather than assume a part-time agent's bad, there's certain things that a part-time agent can do well. Meeting customers, driving customers, walking through them, communicating with them. Those are things that people can do without a lot of technical expertise. And so I think a lot of this has been an excuse to put down part-time real estate agents. But I think at the end of the day, what the market's telling us, what customers are telling us at the end of the day is they like their local real estate agent and they want to do business with them. And I appreciate that. I work hard for that business every day. And when I see big global corporations like Redfin fail, despite tremendous advantages like not paying federal taxes, I feel vindicated and recommitted to helping people get better service. Okay, let's move out to now the fake news of the week in real estate. There's 3 candidates. Number 1, Realtor.com. You know, it's amazing. I've really kind of forgot to mention this for a while now. Realtor.com is not owned by realtors. You might think Realtor.com was owned by realtors, the National Association of Realtors. But the National Association of Realtors, while it was being sued by some fake class action lawsuit in St. Louis, and while it was being attacked by the Biden administration, it was and the prior administrations for fake antitrust violations, it was forced to sell its flagship property, Realtor.com, to, among other people, Fox News. So Realtor.com is not owned by realtors, which is number 1. Number 2, here's some fake news. Americans are losing faith in Trump's ability to fix the housing market, with 70% fearing an impending crash. Oh my gosh. 70% of people, this is comical. It's so disgustingly bad on Realtor.com and Fox News. They should be ashamed of themselves. These people want you to believe that 70% of people in the marketplace, 70% of Americans, I guess, think there's an impending crash. Not only that, without any data in the survey, they want you to blame it on President Trump, right? He's just sitting there looking like a doofus. The coloring is all kind of off to make him look older and with more white hair with a bad shading. And so what's really true? Well, what's true about this article is it's not really done by a polling company. It's done by a real estate content creation company that ran a poll of 1,000 people. Now I'm going to tell you, the poll is probably an email. And once they got the result they wanted, they published it and got a lot of attention because it's not a poll. It's just some data from some company to create some clickbait. Why do I say that? Well, the survey says 1,000 people. They don't say who they are. They're registered voters. Are even Americans? Are they homeowners? No information there whatsoever. It also doesn't ask the question, did these people think there was an impending collapse a year ago and 5 years ago, and they just continue to think that? Meaning they don't think it's Trump's fault. They just think in general the housing is going to collapse. There are people who believe that all the time. I don't think it's 70% of the market. Did people all of a sudden November 6th, start to believe a housing crash because Trump was elected? I mean, 70% of the people, 50% voted for him. Hard to believe 70% of the people think because of Trump there's going to be a crash because of the election. Or is it since January 20th when he was inaugurated, that 70% of the market thinks we're having an impending crash? You know, it's interesting. The statistics show that, you know, I think about 50-50 think we're heading the right direction. So there's no attempt even to explain the state of the reason why is it's fake. This is the kind of garbage that you see if you scroll through your phone, you're not disciplined on where you get your news. This is the kind of news that you get on the major news sources because they're going to feel something that's going to get your attention, and this is going to get your attention. And it's garbage. It really is just pathetic. Realtor.com and I think Fox News in this case both should be ashamed of themselves. So, let's see here. Next, here's another one. This is on Yahoo Finance. Trump and Treasury's big challenge: privatize Fannie and Freddie, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, without making mortgages more expensive. That's their challenge. This is actually an article from The Sun that was picked up by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, by Yahoo Finance. Now, what's interesting is Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are bankrupt organizations. They've been in receivership since 2008. So for the last 17 years, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, two quasi-government agencies, which basically means government agencies with a big loophole so they can pretend as though they're not government, and they can overpay people, and they can give kickbacks all they want because they're not government. They're so incompetent that for 17 years, courts have determined they're not able to run their own affairs, and they're in receivership. So these two zombie organizations, which are both responsible for trillions of dollars of debt guaranteed by taxpayers. And the biggest problem that Yahoo Finance seems to think with that is, if we solve the problem, mortgage rates might go up. Number one, why would rates have to go up because we solved this mess? No explanation. Number two, though, isn't solving a problem where trillions of dollars are being managed by zombie organizations with there's no stockholder equity, there's no upside to the people who work there, they're just government employees. Doesn't anybody have any concern about that whole thing falling apart? But the one concern that we think about is, it's Trump's challenge. Like, the anti-Trump bias in news is never ending. Somehow every news article could be anti-Trump. And I'm not even saying this to be pro-Trump. Why not just talk about the real problem? The real problem is Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are in receivership and hold in their hands trillions of dollars of fate for the average American that we even know about. That should be the news article, but no, the fake news doesn't go with that. They instead have to go with some sort of stupid Trump's thing. Okay, next, under bad news, pathetically bad news. Again, Realtor.com double dipping with California prices may drop soon as housing market flashes warning. Real estate CEO says. That sounds impressive. Real estate CEO. So you have to kind of scroll down. Well, who is this guy? Is it somebody I recognize? They put his name in there. Nick Gurley, founder and CEO of real estate data startup Reventure app. So here's a guy whose current business is a startup. He hasn't even done anything yet. Hasn't sold a house yet. Hasn't really built a business, but he's issuing a warning. And Realtor.com is going to publish it and syndicate to all these news organizations across the country. So what's wrong with this article besides that? Who knows if Nick Gurley has any idea? He's a data guy building some sort of an app, and somehow he puts out some clickbait and it becomes a story across the country. Well, when you read the actual article, what Nick Gurley actually said, I guess no relation to Todd Gurley, the former LA Ram, He says, I want to get the quote here, so I quote, here we go, correct. He says, and I want you to notice three things. One, I wouldn't be surprised if prices trend flat across the state, or even slightly negative by the end of the year. Now remember, before in the article it was, may drop soon. That's scary. Prices are going to drop soon. But I was dishonest. He said they're going to flat or even slightly negative, But up here we talked about just drop. But now it's slight drop. Soon, no, by the end of the year, and particularly in certain markets. So obviously his statement is he doesn't really know. Wouldn't be surprised. What that means is, I'm guessing rates will continue to go up. Housing prices have gone up consistently, 3-4% per year. I wouldn't be surprised if it went down by the end of the year in some markets. Well, of course, they go up in some markets and down in some markets. They go up more than they go down. They go up in the fat middle of the bell curve, and that's why housing prices go up overall. There's always some markets where prices go down. So rather than just say somebody who has no expertise in the area, other than he's related to real estate somehow, throws off a statement anybody might say, but sure, look at the headline. May drop soon, that's dishonest completely. As housing market flashes warning. He doesn't flash a warning. There's no such information in his data. So again, Realtor.com, just I don't know, one of the worst I think I've ever seen overall. Okay, here's a good piece of news, though I would say it's probably not meaningful news. Unfortunately, I wish it was. This is from the Times of San Diego. A bill could spell the end of California's housing versus environment wars. Back in 1970, California passed this horrific set of laws called CEQA. The Council, what was the word I'm looking for this? The Council on the California Environmental Quality Act. Since that time, California went from booming, the golden state, land of opportunity, to a joke across the country where we don't build any more housing on purpose. And this is the tool that governments used, that the progressives have used, the Democrats have used over my lifetime to basically eliminate building new housing throughout the state. This is why California is not Texas or Florida like it used to be, a growing, healthy state, but instead we are a flat population with people leaving and with people coming here being imported illegally. And what this did was it created a whole series of opportunities for lawyers to sue developers endlessly. And not only create jobs for progressive lawyers and nonprofits, but it just destroyed the home building industry in California over time. I remember when this group was formed, and they had a headquarters building built in Diamond Bar, California, where I used to work. I went there, and they had this lunchroom that was available to the public. It was beautiful. The cafeteria was like as nice as any restaurant almost in the city, and had beautiful views of the whole valley. I remember thinking, something's wrong when the government officials have such a nice workplace, so much nicer than the average workplace in the market. And because these government officials treat themselves like they're kings and at the expense of taxpayers. And CEQA, in the 50 years since it's been enacted, has basically destroyed the housing market in California. This is probably more, as much as any one reason you could point to, that law. And so here's a guy, a congressman, a state assemblyman, proposing that we repeal this law. It's never going to happen. He's like one of a few Republicans left in the entire state. I found it fascinating that when they asked the other side, well, what's the reaction to this bill? The government officials didn't even say, we're against it, we're going to fight it. They said, well, we have to study the bill more, which is bureaucrats speak for this is never going to happen. So, great idea. And I think if you were looking to rebuild California, one of the first places you'd start is CEQA. But in California, that's the last place we're going to start. It'd be too effective. Now, let's talk about rebuilding the fires. Is LA on track to rebuild the fires? Well, we'll look at a couple of different stories on that subject. Spoiler alert, no. Here's a good news article from CoStar. And it says that local leaders are urging rethinking rules and processes to rebuild from the fires. And you have these great groups of business people and thought leaders and universities, both USC and UCLA, getting together, putting together ways to streamline regulations and improve the process to rebuild more quickly. Even SC and UCLA working together. That always sounds great. You know, the last time USC and UCLA worked together, they reinstituted the both wearing their colors at the rivalry game, which is great. So let's work together, USC, UCLA. A lot of great ideas. None are ever going to happen. Not in my lifetime. I hope you lived 120, but I just don't see it happening. Great story. Great. Feels good. Working together. What's the results? Well, here we are, 70 days out. How many homes would you say, do you think, have been approved for new permits to rebuild? The answer is, as of last week, 4. Exactly 4. Out of 6,000 homes burned to the ground, 13,000 overall needing some sort of improvement for rebuild. I told a story how a company that I'm the broker for, we had a door broken by criminals. Now, we wanted to replace the door. We didn't want to add anything to it. No new bells, no new whistles, you wouldn't think you needed a permit. It took us 9 months to get the permit to replace this automated roll-up door that was caused by criminals. And not even a new thing, not even had to review some new specifications, just to issue a permit to get a door installed. California, I just don't think they want to rebuild. If you look at the prior story on CEQA, we have a large percentage of Californians who don't want to rebuild in Malibu. They do not want to rebuild in the Palisades. And they're going to fight every permit one at a time. And towards that, you might say, well, what is Karen Bass doing? Is she back from Ghana? Is she back in Ghana? Because that's really apparently important to her as a travel around the world. Well, her newest proposal is that green agenda, you get faster permits if you have an all-electric home. So if your home used to be gas and it burned down, first off, is a gas company going to rebuild their pipes in that area? Well, not if Karen Bass has her way. They'll be all electric. And then are they going to move as quickly as they might otherwise? Again, why would you if you're being attacked by the mayor in this case? And so, but it's not even that simple, meaning when Mayor Bass says she wants to give faster permits for all electric, what does that mean? Well, you have to write those rules and those procedures, and they have to be approved. We haven't started that yet. So instead of reviewing a permit, she's going to have staff write new rules and procedures to fast track all electric. That doesn't improve the speed of the overall permits. That takes resources away from some permits while we write the new rules, and they're re-issued them once the rules are written. And so what we have now is a government that is going to use this disaster to continue to further their political agenda instead of really help people. Nobody paid Karen Bass, nobody hired her as mayor to push an all-electric Palisades and Malibu area. We expect her to provide fire protection, and if it burns down, approve reasonable permits to rebuild. But that's too much for a politician now. This politician is going to focus on using this as an opportunity for pushing her political aspirations. Really sad. What do you think? You think LA is going to rebuild? Are you hopeful about it? Are you optimistic? Maybe I'm a pessimist. In general in life, I'm an optimist. But I've lived here in California almost my entire life, and what I see is what I see. And I'm an optimist that it won't hurt me, it won't affect me personally, and it won't affect you or hurt you if you're aware and make the right choices. So again, I am an optimist. I'm not optimistic about City of Los Angeles. I'm optimistic about life overall. Well, how about you? Do you like this content? Like it, subscribe, you have comments, questions, what would you like to see me cover? I appreciate some of your suggestions during the week. I try to incorporate them where I can. I'm at Bill Gross Probate on social media. You can call me, text me, email me. As always, make today your best day ever.